NCIS Origins just changed everything. Mark Harmon returns as Gibbs, but that unexpected fan reaction has everyone talking. There are television returns, and then there are returns that completely change the conversation. For years, Mark Harmon's Leroy Jethro Gibbs has been one of the most recognizable faces in the NCIS universe. Quiet, intense, unpredictable, and guided by a personal code that fans could recognize instantly, Gibbs became far more than just another television character. He became the emotional center of an entire franchise. That is why the possibility of seeing Harmon connected to NCIS Origins as Gibbs has created such a huge wave of excitement. But strangely enough, the biggest story may not actually be Harmon's return. It may be the reaction from the fans. When viewers heard that Harmon could once again be connected to the younger version of Gibbs's story, many expected the internet to explode with nothing but celebration. Instead, the response quickly became much more complicated. Excitement, nostalgia, curiosity, skepticism, and even emotional reactions began appearing side by side, and that unexpected combination has made the NCIS Origins conversation even more fascinating. The Gibbs we know, before he became Gibbs. One of the biggest attractions of NCIS Origins is the opportunity to explore a period of Gibbs' life that fans have only heard about in fragments. The legendary investigator audiences know from NCIS did not simply appear fully formed. There was a journey, there were losses, there were mistakes, there were moments that changed him forever. That is what makes a younger Gibbs so compelling. Instead of watching the confident veteran who already knows exactly how to handle every crisis, viewers get the chance to see a man who is still becoming the person fans eventually came to know. And having Mark Harmon involved gives that story an additional emotional layer. Harmon isn't simply associated with Gibbs. For millions of viewers, he is Gibbs. That connection makes every appearance, voice, flashback, or narrative reference feel significantly bigger than an ordinary television moment. Why Harmon's involvement feels so different. The interesting thing about Mark Harmon's connection to NCIS Origins is that it doesn't need to function like a traditional comeback. That distinction matters. Fans expecting Gibbs to simply walk back into the NCIS universe exactly as he did before may be looking at the situation differently from what the series actually intends. Origins has a different mission. It is about going backward to understand the character's history, while simultaneously giving audiences something new. That creates an unusual storytelling opportunity. Harmon can serve as a bridge between generations of NCIS viewers. Longtime fans recognize the Gibbs they grew up watching. Newer viewers get to discover the character from a completely different perspective, and suddenly, the past and present of the franchise begin to connect. That is where the real excitement begins. Then came the fan reaction. You might expect the internet to respond with a simple message, Gibbs is back. But that wasn't the entire story. Some fans reacted emotionally because seeing Harmon associated with Gibbs again immediately brought back memories of the original NCIS era. For longtime viewers, Gibbs represents years of television history. He represents the early seasons, memorable team members, dramatic cases, emotional departures, unexpected reunions, and countless moments that made NCIS one of television's biggest franchises. Other fans, however, had a different reaction. They wanted the new series to stand on its own. Rather than turning Origins into a nostalgia machine, they wanted the younger Gibbs story to develop naturally. And that debate may actually be good news for the show. Why? Because people are talking. A television series becomes culturally interesting when viewers aren't simply watching it, they are discussing what it means, where it should go, and how it connects to the story they already love. The nostalgia factor is powerful. There is something uniquely emotional about returning to a character after years away. Fans don't just remember Gibbs. They remember where they were when they watched him. They remember specific episodes. They remember characters who are no longer part of the franchise. They remember the relationships, arguments, jokes, investigations, and heartbreaking moments. So when Mark Harmon appears in connection with Gibbs again, viewers aren't simply seeing an actor. They are seeing a piece of television history. That is why even a relatively small moment can generate a surprisingly large reaction. A look, a voice, a familiar attitude, a reference to Gibbs's future, Any of these details can send longtime viewers searching for clues about what Origins might reveal next. What could this mean for NCIS Origins? The biggest question now is how far the series will go. Will viewers eventually see more direct connections to the original NCIS? Will familiar characters appear? Could the younger Gibbs story reveal details that change how audiences understand the older Gibbs? Or will the series deliberately keep its distance and focus on creating its own identity? Those questions are exactly what make the series so intriguing. The writers have an enormous amount of history to work with, but they also have an enormous responsibility. Fans already know where Gibbs eventually ends up. The challenge is making them care about the journey even though they know the destination. That requires more than nostalgia. It requires strong storytelling. The most surprising part of the reaction, perhaps the most interesting part of the fan response, is that viewers seem to want two things at the same time. They want the Gibbs they remember, but they also want something they have never seen before. That sounds contradictory. In reality, it could be the perfect formula for NCIS Origins. The series can honor the history of Gibbs without simply repeating it. Mark Harmon can provide the connection to the character's established legacy, while the younger story explores unfamiliar territory. That balance could become one of the show's greatest strengths. A new chapter for an old favorite. For decades, Gibbs has been one of television's most recognizable investigators. But Origins asks a fascinating question. Who was Gibbs before he became the Gibbs everyone knew? That question has the potential to transform how audiences understand the character. And if Mark Harmon really can help guide viewers through that journey, his presence becomes more than a nostalgic cameo. It becomes part of the storytelling architecture of the entire franchise. That may ultimately be why fans are reacting so strongly. They aren't simply waiting to see whether Gibbs returns, they're waiting to discover what his return means, and that difference could be everything. One thing is already clear: NCIS Origins has given fans something they haven't had in a long time, a reason to look backward while being genuinely curious about what comes next. Whether viewers respond with excitement, skepticism, nostalgia, or all three at once, the conversation surrounding Gibbs isn't going away. If anything, Mark Harmon's connection to the character has reminded everyone just how powerful the NCIS legacy really is. And if Origins continues finding new ways to connect Gibbs's past with the character audiences already know and love, the biggest surprise may still be waiting around the corner. Because when it comes to Gibbs, one rule has always mattered: never assume you know the whole story. And now, after all these years, fans may finally get to see the chapters they never knew they were missing.